Hi guys, my name is Kim, and this is the start of my new YouTube channel. I'm going to be talking about my faith journey, how I came to faith, what I've learned, and what it is to be a follower of Jesus Christ, and what I've learned. And yeah, I'm happy you guys are watching my first video, and thank you guys. I appreciate it already. So let's get into it, and I guess I'll start with this first video is going to be a testimony video. So let's jump right into it. So basically, to start off with, before I was never a believer. I believed in a God, but I was never a follower. I never went to church when I was little. I never grew up in a family where we went to church and prayed or anything like that. So we really never talked about it. I was never really introduced about it other than my grandma. She was Orthodox, but I didn't really spend that much time with her. I didn't really get into it with her about the whole religion thing. So it was all new to me, this whole thing. So basically, 2 years ago, or no, 4 or 5 years ago, I hurt my neck working out, lifting weights, and it was such an innocent thing where I lifted too heavy and I hurt my neck, and I thought it was going to be just like a small muscle problem. And 3 days later, it kept getting worse and worse and worse, and I couldn't lift anything. I could barely talk. My symptoms were so weird. It was the weirdest injury I've ever had. My symptoms were weird. My neck felt swollen, and it was just horrible. And I thought it was going to take like maybe 2 or 3 months to heal. Still never went away. I was trying to figure out what's wrong. I went to the doctors. They said there's nothing wrong. They did MRIs maybe like a year later for some reason, or maybe like six months to a year later. They finally did an MRI, and still showed nothing wrong. Maybe like a small disc bulge, but a lot of people have those without even noticing. So these symptoms were like horrible. Like they were swelling, pain. I could barely lift anything. I could barely run. I could barely stand up for a long period of time. I could sit down for a long period of time. So it was a pretty bad injury from something so innocent. And then it started to go into like back pain. And it went from neck to back pain to numbness on one side, then numbness on the other side of my body from head down. And this was like 2 or 3 years in where I've already tried physical therapy, acupuncture, and medications, all kinds of stuff. I've tried everything. The doctors tried everything. The doctor said there's nothing wrong with me. And I'm like, well, I'm in a lot of pain and discomfort. But they said there's nothing wrong with me. And they don't know what's wrong with me, basically. And they said I'm healthy and everything's fine in my neck and back. After all the MRIs, even in my head, they did all the head scans, the back scans, the neck scans. They said everything was fine. And I'm like dying out here, like not actually dying, but like I could barely like walk or run or stand for long periods of time or sit for long periods of time or lift anything, 5 pounds. So it was pretty bad. A lot of my symptoms were really bad, and maybe 2 or 3 years in, I've already tried everything. I've tried everything in my power to get better. I've tried eating healthier. I've tried working out, doing physical therapy, all this stuff. So I went to neurologists, all these different doctors. They said everything is fine. They don't know what's wrong with me. And I still, to this day, am feeling it, but not as bad. So 2 years ago is when I got saved, because I finally was just like, I was on bed rest for 3 months at the time because it just got super bad. And I think drinking alcohol made it worse too. So I think the hangovers, probably put a toll on my neck and my nerves and whatever it is. So 2 or 3 years ago, I was on bed rest and for 3 months, and during that time was when I found God, or God found me, because the only thing I could do was pray. Nobody else could help me. No doctors, nothing. The only doctor that could help me was Jesus. And the only thing I could do was pray. And I just prayed out to him more and more every week, every day, because I was on bed rest. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't go to work. I thought everything was over. I thought my life was over basically because I was on bed rest and it was that bad, you know? And I basically started watching a podcast, a Christian podcast. Then I started watching sermons and reading the Bible. I started praying, I started reading the Bible. That July, maybe like 2 or 3 months later, I decided to go to church, and that was my first time even going to church, and it took me a lot to even go into church by myself because I didn't know what it was. I've never been in a church. I never talked about church with my family. So I went into church, and I sat in the corner, and then this lady came up to me because apparently she said that the Holy Spirit told her to come to me, and it was just this beautiful thing where she told me to sit next to her and her husband. So I sat with them, and I'm still good friends with them today. They really helped me they helped me feel comfortable at church. So I felt comfortable at church because of them. I'm very thankful for them. And I met a lot of people at church, and now from 2 years ago to now, I learned so much. I am better than I was before. I am like 50% better. I'm not 100% with my neck and back problem and my weird nerves and numbness and all my weird symptoms and dizziness. I've had all these weird symptoms that the doctors couldn't figure out. But now I am like somewhat better than I was before. I'm not on bed rest anymore, but now I'm started going to the gym. I started taking care of my body more. I started eating healthier. I just started praying more and talking to God more, building a relationship with God more, and praying for healing every day consistently. And I'm not 100% better. I'm not 100% fully healed, but me suffering, I found Jesus through my suffering. And I don't regret any of that happening because I found him. Like I would have never found him, or he would have never found me if I didn't pray out to him because of my suffering and because what I was going through. So I don't regret any of that happening because that's how I found him, and I would have never found him. And I'm so thankful for that. But yeah, guys, for 2 years now, I've been saved through my suffering by Jesus. And I'm going to talk about today how God strengthened me through suffering. And the first point that I want to talk about is he is here to comfort us. He is our rock. He is our refuge. And for example, in Psalms 46:1, it says, God is our refuge and strength and a very present help in trouble. And also in Psalm 91, it talks about how he is our refuge and our fortress. And there's so many other Psalms where it shows that he is our refuge to go to through times of need. So that's one of the main things that I learned from the suffering, is that he's our refuge. We want to go to him. He wants us to go to him. So then point number two is persistence in prayer. See, I was praying for healing for so long. I'm obviously not fully healed, but I'm better than I was before. And I think that's kind of miraculous because for 3 years before that, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And now it's getting better and better and better. And I'm so grateful for that. And it's not something I could have done. It's something that he did for me because he probably guided me along the right paths to get better with like how I work out, how I eat, and just overall rewire my brain, because the whole point of my issue that I had was I was thinking of so much pain in my head that I amplified my pain, amplified my nervous system, amplified my nerves, and that was like the closest thing that the doctors could have diagnosed me with, which they didn't diagnose me, but that's the closest thing that they came up with, was I amplified my pain by thinking about it all the time, thinking about my symptoms, and that's how it happened. And I feel like Jesus did help me with that. He pointed me in the direction of, okay, you gotta you got to think more positive about your symptoms. You got to think that your pain isn't as bad as it is. And yeah, he helped me with that. And it all takes persistence and prayer if you want to get healed, if you want to build a closer relationship with him, because the fact that the more consistently you pray to him, the closer you get to him, the better relationship you have with him, because the more you talk to him, So in Luke 18:1-8, there is a parable about the persistent widow, and she basically never gave up to praying what she wanted to God, and she finally got it. And that is a perfect example of persistence in prayer. And God wants you to bring your needs and concerns to him, and you always want to pray whatever you need to him consistently, no matter if it happens or not. You still want to have that relationship with him no matter what. And the point number 3 is God heals miraculously in the gospel. And I've heard so many other testimonies nowadays where God heals miraculously. So it happened back then. He is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So he healed so many people in the Gospels miraculously with the snap of a finger. He's done that in this day and age. I've heard so many testimonies, and that leads me to point number 4 is God heals over time. So he could heal with the snap of a finger, or he could heal over time, kind of like me, So it basically builds character, it builds growth, it builds resilience, it strengthens yourself, your mental, your physical body. Like, for example, I started eating better. I've gotten more mature throughout this time of my suffering and healing. I have started taking care of my body more, taking care of my temple more, and I've just learned so much, built so much character. To healing through suffering over time, it takes so much. So there's a lot to do with how God strengthens us through our suffering, even if it's over time. It could be healing over time. It could be building you over time. I really like the book of Job, and if you guys want to read part of the Bible about suffering, and the book of Job is really good. I do recommend that. So it goes to point number 5. The greater purpose our minds can't understand. So there's always a greater purpose that our minds can't understand. So if we are suffering, right? If we're suffering, if we're in pain, some of the time there are purposes in the spiritual heavenly realms that God knows that we don't understand, of why we're suffering. So in Romans 8:18, it says, our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. So the passage is basically saying that it can also provide an external perspective, knowing that enduring through temporary suffering, it will one day lead to permanent, eternal future. So we have to understand there's a eternal future, and that doesn't minimize our suffering. God doesn't minimize our suffering today. He understands how we feel. He understands our emotions. He understands our suffering. But that is just a peace of mind thing, that when we are suffering, we gotta remember there's a bigger picture to it. It could be in our lifetime. It could be not in our lifetime. It could be in the eternal future, because in the eternal future, there is no pain, there is no suffering, there's none of that in heaven, So we gotta keep that in our peace of mind. And that leads me to number 6. Jesus suffered on the cross, so he could relate to us. He understands human pain. He suffered probably the most brutal thing in history a man can suffer. So he can relate to us, and there were so many emotions in his mind before the cross, so he could relate to a lot of our emotions as a human being. So yeah, and in Hebrews 4:15, it says, "For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin." And that verse is one of my favorite verses because it shows that he understands us, he understands our struggles. And honestly, guys, I heard someone say that, okay, the cross looked like defeat, but it became victory. So sometimes when I think, like, oh, this is defeat, I'm having the worst day ever with my pain, with my suffering, it looks like defeat. But that's what they thought back then when the cross looked like defeat at the time, but then it led to victory. So there's always a victory. There's always better days ahead. There's always better days ahead, especially with our eternal futures. And that's just a peace of mind thing where there's always better days ahead, and especially God, because he loves you. He's trying to build you, he's trying to grow you, he's trying to strengthen you through your suffering. And guys, through this whole thing with my suffering and my pain and my health issue, I have learned to be more grateful because I'm obviously better, 10 times better than I was before. So it makes me more grateful that I'm not back there anymore. And it just makes me so much more grateful for life because it opened my eyes. Because there are better days always, and that's when I enjoy the better days. And you just got to stay positive and trust God, trust God's plan, and have faith in him that he will heal you, and he will provide for you whatever it is you're struggling with, whatever you're suffering with. But yeah, guys, to wrap it up, I do want to say that God has not forgotten about you. He loves you, even though it may not feel like sometimes he's not there. He is there. He's there looking out for you. He loves you. And there's always a bigger picture in our suffering, and he strengthens us through our suffering all the time. So, yeah, guys, thank you guys for listening, and I'm very, very happy to start this YouTube channel. Thank you guys for listening to my testimony. Like I said, I'm not fully healed yet, but now I'm a believer 2 years in, thanks to my suffering. So that is probably one of the best things that's ever happened to me in my life, that I found Jesus through all of this. And I wouldn't change it for the world now. So I'm very grateful for that. And yeah, guys, I hope you guys have a great day. And wait until next video. God bless.